Hi, I'm Claire and this is Craig, and right now we were supposed to be travelling around Australia and New Zealand in a campervan. But since we had to cancel those plans, we decided to buy our own van and have a go at self-converting it into a campervan.
Neither of us have a huge amount of DIY experience, and being in a wheelchair adds another challenge, so it's going to be an interesting experience.
In this episode, we strip out the van so that we've got a clean slate to start from, and then we begin to tackle the insulation. From Craig's accident up until now, I've had to do all of the driving since we only had a manual car. So the very first step that we took towards this conversion was getting hand controls fitted, so now Craig can finally help with the driving too. So we did have a second row of seats in the back, but we've taken them out and sold them. Then after that, we filled in the holes that the seats left in the floor with some sealant to make sure that the floor is waterproof before we start doing any conversion. So the next task that we're going to do now is to take these panels out of the van.
Yep, we're just taking everything out of the van so that we can get into all the cavities to put insulation in later.
This is coming out.
So what we have now is a completely empty van, which is a nice clean slate to start from. Unfortunately, the audio broke for this bit, but we packed up the van and took it away for a short trip to test it out. We just put an air mattress in the back and had all of our stuff piled around us as we slept. And now back to the conversion.
So our insulation has just arrived here, and we are using sheep's wool for our insulation.
We've chosen sheep's wool for all of these reasons. And also it's a lot more natural and sustainable than most other insulation materials.
Yep, and we're going to try and be as sustainable as possible with this conversion as we can be. But they do say when you get this sheep's wool that it can smell a bit sheepy, so you should open it up and leave it to air out for a few days so that the smell can dissipate. So that's what we're doing now. Oof, it smells like a farmyard. It really does. I was just about to say something really stupid. I was about to say it feels like wool.
Yeah, just like real wool.
Why
wow.
does it feel like wool, I wonder? There we are.
I've got wool on.
Hopefully this sheepy smell will start to dissipate. Yesterday we did a really big clean of the van in preparation for painting. So there are some areas where the paint has chipped off, and we're just going to touch up all those areas to hopefully protect against rust. So it was actually a really big job to clean because there's all this sticky stuff that's got stuck on the walls. So we've been trying to get that off. We've done all of the wall on this side, we've done the door, but we've still got one wall left to do, so I'm going to do that now, and then hopefully we'll be ready to do the painting. And I have a little friend joining me. Yesterday we finally started to make some progress towards actually putting stuff in the van rather than just taking stuff out. So we started on the insulation, and we're using sheep's wool insulation for the walls, and we're using Cork for the flooring. And we're using Cork rather than sheep's wool for the flooring because it's a little bit more rigid and it's not going to take us as much space, so we can have extra headroom. We've put some Cork strips, we've cut them out, stuck them down in between the grooves on the van, and then we're going to do another layer of Cork on top of that before we put the plywood floor on top of that. And the reason we've done this is to have thicker insulation where possible without increasing the overall height of the flooring, so that we can retain as much headroom as possible. We've also cut out some wooden blocks which we're going to screw through the floor into those blocks to hold the floor down. We've put them rather than trying to go through the Cork because we think that will be a bit messy trying to screw through. We're trying to do this conversion in the most environmentally friendly way possible, which is why we are using sheep's wool and Cork for our insulation. Unfortunately, it's not always possible to find products which don't have some impact on the environment, but where we can, we're trying to use products which are going to be as sustainable as possible. And so Yesterday we started cutting the cork and sticking it down, and then we're going to continue doing that today. It is a little bit tedious, but hopefully it will be worth it in the long run. The other nice thing about these natural products, besides the environmental benefits, is that they're very easy to work with. You can touch them with your hands. They're not going to irritate you like the other sorts of insulation you can get, which is another great bonus. We just cut this cork with scissors. It's very easy to cut through.
So yesterday we finished putting down the first layer of cork, so filling in all the gaps between the ribs in the van, and we also put a little bit of our sheep's wool insulation in the wall. And now today we're going to put down the second layer of cork, so big layers over everything, and if we've got time we're going to finish putting insulation in the wall as well. And if all that goes to plan, then we're actually going to put the flooring down as well, so that'll be good. So we've been putting our sheep's wool insulation in the walls, and now we need to put some on the top section of the walls. On this bit there's no metal structure to tuck it behind, so it's been quite difficult to put the wool there without it potentially falling back out afterwards before we put the panel up. So our trick for dealing with this is to tie some string through these vents here and onto the brackets on the other side, and then use this string to hold the insulation in place until the panel is ready to go on. So that's what Claire's doing here. Put some string across, and then we're going to tuck the insulation behind that. Perfect. And the same again on this side, tying a string between the brackets and the metal structure of the vents on the other side. And then once this is all in place, we'll be ready to put our panels up. So Claire's just going to put the sheep's wool in now. It just comes in these big rolls, which are easy to rip off pieces as you need them. And the nice thing about sheep's wool, as well as it being something natural, and sustainable, is that it's quite nice to touch with your hands, I guess. It's not going to be an irritant like some forms of mineral wool or loft insulation, that sort of stuff. So we can just handle it straight away with our hands and just tuck it in as we need it. So for now, Claire's just tearing off chunks as big as she'll need to hang there. The solution isn't completely perfect, and the wool needs to sort of air for a little bit before we trap it in, because it smells a bit like a farmyard when you first get it out. So we're just going to leave it hanging out for a day or so just to let the smell dissipate, and then hopefully by that point we'll be ready with the panels to go straight on and hold it all in place. So the rest of the insulation essentially just gets pushed in behind the metalwork. It's a lot easier than that top section. The voids go quite a long way beyond what you can see. So as you push it in, you have to sort of shove it in and stuff it to the sides to fill all the little voids. So we finished laying the cork flooring, and now we're going to put our plywood floor down. We've got 12mm plywood flooring, which we got cut to size by Custom Shop Designs, and they sell flooring for a whole range of different types of vans. It comes in 3 pieces, 2 at the back and 1 at the front, and it fits quite nicely. So for each piece, we're going to drill a hole in each of the 4 corners, and then we're going to screw them in to the bits of wood which we've glued down underneath, and that should keep them nicely held in place.
We now have a solid floor. Next time we put the wall panels in and begin to build the bed.